Hello, my name is Thomas, and this is episode 2 of how I set up Atom for Clojure development. In this episode, we're going to be showing you how to integrate a REPL into your Atom editor using Chlorine. Now, to begin with, you have to have Clojure installed to make all this work. If you haven't installed Clojure yet on your local machine, I recommend checking out Eric Norman's purelyfunctional.tv, amazing source for resources in general for how to write Clojure, but he does have this great piece on how to install Clojure. Specifically, what's great about it is his Java setup guide, and I like the Clojure command line interface guide. So I would recommend following those two. You don't necessarily have to do the Leiningen install. You can save that for later. Once you actually have Clojure installed, we can go over to Atom. And in Atom, we are going to go to Install. And then we're going to find Chlorine, and I already have it typed in there. So we can go ahead and install Chlorine. This is going to take just a moment. All right, now Chlorine is done installing. Before we actually go into the settings menu for Chlorine, we also need to install Ink. So we're going to install that one as well. And again, that'll take a moment. Ink has finished installing. Fortunately for us, we don't need to do any configurations with Ink, but we are going to go check out Chlorine. So we go in the Packages tab, type in Chlorine, go into Settings, and my main point of showing you this is so that, one, you know where the settings are to manage Chlorine, but also just to see that you don't really actually need to do anything. It comes with some pretty sane defaults out of the box, so you should be good to go. With that in mind, we can actually close these settings, and I'm going to open another file. This file is what I call chlorine.clj. Again, the code doesn't really matter. It's just some simple Clojure code that we're going to use as an example of how to actually work with Chlorine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start a Clojure REPL. There are actually two different ways that you can start a Clojure REPL. If you downloaded the CLJ command line tool, you can just type in CLJ and press enter, and that is going to start your Clojure REPL. With that, you can do things like evaluate Clojure code. Okay, with that, we have to understand that the way that Chlorine actually works, it wants a Clojure socket REPL. So to start a socket REPL, I have this little command here, and again, I will put this in the description below. And you're going to run this whole thing instead of just running the CLJ command. And this is what you'll need to do if you want Chlorine to connect to your running REPL. Now we have it started. We can now connect our Atom editor to Chlorine. To do that, we press Shift Command P, and that opens up this menu here. From there, we can type in connect, and Chlorine is going to be the first option there. So you can just select this one here, connect socket REPL. The port that we used was 5555. So you just type that, press enter, and it'll tell you that the Clojure REPL is connected. All right, great. What does that actually mean? Well, before we had to go inside of our terminal and actually evaluate code. Now we can do it from the comfort of our editor. So as you can see here, we did +11, just like we did before in the REPL. And what I'm going to do is say evaluate and run it, and oh shit, it evaluates as 2. What about this one here? Well, we can put our cursor here and once again do evaluate. And it gives us 14. That is great. What about something a little more interesting? What if we wanted to run functions? Well, this is an example of a function that I built, and when you run it, it's going to return a map. So the first thing you have to do with functions is you always have to remember to evaluate the function before you try to run the function. So if you tried to run line 23 before you ran line 16, it wouldn't actually work. So let's run line 16 and evaluate this. And it's going to tell us that it worked, and you'll see it here. Demo.test is the name of our current namespace, which is demo.test, and then it's / the name of the function, build map. Now we're going to run build map. And all we have to do is go here and event, again, do evaluate block. And we get this beautiful little data structure that's returned to us. You can see it here, and you can see that Chlorine actually gives you this little copied result thing. And if you're actually inside the editor like this, you can actually drop down the data structures so you can see them a little clearer. which is pretty great. And again, you can copy this and then you could paste it in a different Clojure file if you wanted to. It gets more interesting when you're actually running live code in a system. For example, you can run code that hits databases. You can run code like Slurp, and this is actually something that Clojure for the Brave and True has provided, which is a URL which every time you visit it is going to deliver you a random quote. So we can see that we can actually make a live request inside of our editor. Let's evaluate that. And it will take a little moment because it's making the request. And as we can see, we get the best way to keep children home is to make a home a pleasant atmosphere. Okay, cool. And as I said, it's random, so let's see if it actually fetches us something different. Evaluate. Great, we got a different one this time. That's awesome. Now you're going to actually notice that a lot of these little notification bars are kind of hanging around. So if you want to know how to get rid of those, you do Command-Shift-P once again, and we can do, I think it's clear, inline results, clear all. And if you type that, you get rid of all of them. And that's an example of how you integrate Atom to your REPL environment. Now, I'm not going to go much deeper into this because there's a lot of cool things that you can do here. I'm not really going to dive into what a REPL-driven development workflow looks like or show you that. I think that's a video unto itself. You can also do this for ClojureScript as well. You'll have to use something like Lumo or Plonk, and there is guides inside of the Chlorine README, so feel free to check that out. And that actually concludes our Atom Editor series about how I set up Atom for Clojure development.